I'm Troy Thompson. Over the last 15 years, our family has worked hard to create a place we call the center of the universe. A place where our kids and someday our grandkids can come home to and laugh, have fun, learn how to work, pray, worship God, and be a place to celebrate life with all our friends. After a quarter century in uniform, I put away one set of boots for another, working on our acreage, improving the land, fixing some structures, and building new ones. We say, give back to the community, be useful, keep your hands calloused, and spread the gospel. This is a little place in a little state right in the middle of flyover country, from which cries out a voice in the wilderness to all who might want to listen, learn, and laugh along with us. This is our American dream. Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to Sunnyside. Now, I know that today, when this comes out, is April 1st, which is typically, well, I guess that is April Fool's Day, but this is by no means a joke. However, with us today is a comedian, a writer, having performed at the Comedy Store, the Hollywood Improv, Pasadena Ice House, also former corrections officer, which in itself, I think, is probably full of funny stories at the California State Prison, Los Angeles County, and doing all kinds of wonderful things. He lives in Valencia, California, as wife and daughter, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Folks, with me today is Mike Knox, the author of Vivien's Reign, My Daughter's Battle with Epilepsy. Hi, Mike. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So excited to talk to you. Like I was telling you just before we started the recording today, read your book over the weekend, Vivien's Reign, My Daughter's Battle with Epilepsy. And it's just a fantastic, well-written account of a dad who is absolutely in love with his daughter and will do anything to help her through this battle with epilepsy. And so, kudos to you, my friend. A very wonderful telling of that passion that you have for your daughter. Just outstanding.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit here. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. I gave you that brief introduction, but I stole that from your book. So what do you want our listeners to know about you?
Well, I'm doing good. I retired last year from a horrible job as a parole agent, and I was in the Department of Corrections, which is, I tell everybody, stay away from there.
Yeah.
Anything with law enforcement, I say stay away from now. Go be an attorney. So I'm just, doing what I always wanted to do, which was acting, writing, stand-up comedy, and now I have the time to do it. And I'm, for the first time, actually enjoying doing it and have the time to do it. And, the main thing is my daughter's healthy, and so we kind of went through a long period of time where she was in and out of the hospital because of her epilepsy. And so she's in a good place. Our family's in a good place. So just very blessed.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about that. We're definitely going to talk about Vivien's Reign. Now, that's a dumb question. What compelled you to write this book, Vivien's Reign, My Daughter's Battle with Epilepsy? Obviously, your experience with your daughter's battle of epilepsy, but, what in the world made you think you can write a book about it?
I can't necessarily say that I think that I could write the book, but it was just writing down, because epilepsy was just so fragmented that I was just every day kind of writing down notes. And then as a family, we couldn't really go anywhere because the seizures really held you captive at home. So it was kind of my therapy, writing things down, the events of what went on. And then also to be able to remember for my daughter, who had a lot of memory loss. And also, kind of a history for her to look back. And she hasn't read the book, but for her to know that her parents were there, and we were doing everything possible for her. And there was there were some horrible times where we thought we were going to lose her. And so I really wanted, kind of for her to be able to look back and remember that, it was a huge struggle, but we as a family really came together. And there was a lot of love in our family for her, and we were just doing the best that we could.
It's just an amazing book, and I mentioned to you that the way you write is just so excellent and to the point. I can tell that you're a comedian, that you have the delivery, and you have to get what you want to have said in. There's timing to it from the very first chapter of Vivien's reign. I mean, it just draws you in, and like I said, it ought to be a movie. I mean, this is an incredible story.
Thank you. That would be great. I'd love for it to be a movie.
See, look, got a lot of contacts out here in the middle of the country in Iowa. So when it comes to filmmaking, this is where people go. I don't know why you're still out there in California. We're making all the movies in Iowa. Or not.
I don't know why I'm here either, to tell you the truth. You're in a much better place.
Well, it's snowing today. We've got ice. I don't know what's happening, but that's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. You and your wife, Nicole, and your daughter, Vivien, she was born in 2007, and she's got a condition called status, boy, I'm going to say this wrong, status epilepticus. Did I say that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right. Well, that Latin came in handy. I had no Latin training, but you did. You went to Catholic school.
I did go to Catholic school. I didn't really pay much attention, though, at all.
Was some of my favorite parts of the book were your descriptions of your Catholic school experiences. It was just in one chapter, but that was very, very funny. I might jump to that question actually, which is your experiences with education, public education, are one thing that we will talk about. But boy, the experiences that you had growing up in a Catholic school. Tell us about that supportive time in your life from all of those Catholic school educators that you described in your book.
Well, I mean, for me, it was just. I don't think it. It was just kind of negative. Everybody was so. It was a convent. There were nuns there. They were always angry. They were taking out all of their anger out on the students, and then I was the pretty much class clown, and nobody likes the clown, so they took out a lot of their anger out on me. And so it was it was at least for somewhat a good school, and I still keep in contact with all the kids that I went to school with. Just that some of the nuns were just like crazy and left a kind of impression on me just because they were just I kind of equate it to law enforcement. It's like, why are you so angry? And those were the nuns. They were just so every day, just miserable and angry. And it's like, why do you want to be a nun then?
Right.
And I didn't embrace Catholicism too much at the time.
It makes me think of how there was, when you have, I have many friends who are police officers. I mean, I don't want to sound like that, guys. Oh no, I have friends who are cops, but obviously, but it seems like, when I'm trying to explain in my own mind, like, why are they so a certain way, whatever that happens to be, and I'm like, oh, well, it's probably because they just spend all their time dealing with the worst people on a daily basis. And so I think at a certain point that probably, or at least people who maybe not the worst people, but they're definitely the people that are doing the worst things at that moment in their lives. And that probably does affect their character just a little bit, or at least their demeanor. Maybe that's how those Catholic nuns felt for you growing up. Maybe they'd been doing that too long, perhaps. But is it true that your guidance counselor said, well, hey, you're 14, when you were 14 years old, just started high school? You should drop out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mr. Christ. I still remember that guy. I'll never forget him. Because to this day I look back and think like, how did he get that job? And then why would he ever say that? But it was, that was kind of the generation of, it was like seeing somebody, you would see a kid getting hit in the grocery store and you'd be rooting for the parents. It was just a different time. I mean, everybody was, getting the beatings from everybody. I mean, you could go over to somebody's house and the parents would hit you. That's like unheard of now.
Right. It is. Yeah. Now, I grew up in a very great family. In fact, not only do I believe that, I also have to say it. They live across the road from me. So no,
that's awesome.
My mom and dad, they listen to the show. So we got at least a couple of listeners. So there's that. But they were. I wouldn't say heavy-handed. My dad was very slow to lay out the discipline on me, but when he did, the business was serious. But my mom, she was the quick dispatcher of justice. And
Yeah, that was my mom.
yeah, so let me know what was going on. So let's jump back, and we're just going to jump all over the place if you don't mind.
Sure.
You talk
Yeah,
about in your book, you talk about how big a help it was. So Vivien's born, and everything at first seems fairly normal, but at a certain point, obviously you recognize that things aren't maybe the way that they should be. And at one point, I made a note that said you noticed the saving grace of a baby swing, and how much of a help that was as a brand new parent. And I was just wondering, I made a note and said, well, I wonder if he knows about GNR, appetite for destruction, because as a parent for 4 boys, I found the same situation. Put them in the car seat, drive around, and then play little appetite for destruction, and they would go to sleep.
Yeah, that was one of the things. Is I was just trying to cut the corners of, if I don't have to get into the car and
Right.
drive around at 3:00 in the morning, this swing was like amazing to me. And that was the thing that worked. And then that was kind of an argument that I had with my wife, where she wanted to get rid of it because she was like, our daughter's too addicted to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a fight that we had, where she wanted to get rid of it. And, I didn't like that. So I tell everybody about the swing.
The baby swings were fantastic.
Oh,
and I
yes.
can tell you that I think that the technology in baby swings have changed significantly in the name of safety. I'm pretty sure that my first son, who's now 29, his baby swing might have just been a giant spring connected to a little chair that you could probably go in any direction and hang himself if you wanted to. But boy, it was fun to
it was fun.
keep him in there, So you talk about one of the things that there's my observation of your book as you describe things. It's just like, it's almost, gosh, it's so hard to imagine all of the different obstacles that you ran into, character, and such. Of course, you're so good at describing the characters with whom you interact throughout the book, but it just seems like one thing after another. How whether it's hospital or teachers or your own workplace, and we'll get to those things. But let's talk a little bit about the bedside manners and the explanations that were provided by the difference between the bedside manners of the teaching hospital that you initially got to after having been to some of the standard medical care places when these things first started appearing, and then just the difference between, say, talking to somebody that is a doctor at UCLA where they're also teaching students versus what you had in the standard care.
Yeah, I think that I never had to go to the hospital really. And then having to take my child to the hospital, I didn't even realize that there were different hospitals for children or different hospitals for, different pediatrics. And then going there, I'm just thinking, oh, well, I've seen on TV so many times where, like watching Grey's Anatomy, where everybody they want to help you. And then you realize that people don't want to help you. They want to get rid of you. And that's kind of the model of hospitals, is they just want to shuffle you in and out and kind of see how they can, not have you come back. And I really wanted the empathy and the compassion, and I never got it. I kind of got stuck on, especially the empathy part, like wanting them to understand what we were going through. And I just, after years, just realizing that really nobody it's sad, but nobody cares. And it's not done on purpose. And I'm certainly not upset, with, how the medical field is dealt with, but it's just like it just reminds me of so much government that people you can get lost, and I'm still dealing with it now, all these years later, where it's just, I go to the pharmacy near my house, and I've been going there 17 years, and they look at me like they've never met me. And I know all these people, and I've talked to them before, and they just let me down all the time, to completely drop the ball. I'm trying to get, a medication switched to a pill form right now, and they just are so incompetent and they can't do it. And I've been going on 6 months just simply trying to get a liquid to a pill, and they simply just can't do it. And it's kind of, you get lost in, well, the computer says that, that it can't be done. So then nobody wants to, kind of look and investigate for you or help you out. And I guess that still does kill me, but I would just see incompetence so much, and you just kind of have to accept it, and you got to work around it. Because otherwise you can, if you're not the advocate for yourself or your kids, nobody else is going to be. And that was kind of what I was thinking in the beginning was, oh, I'm going to have people, you're seeing people posting online, or you're seeing shows where everybody's advocating for you. And To me, it rarely happened.
Well, you say in the book that in medicine today, you have to be your own best idea person. Why is that? And in what ways did you do that?
Just because you've got, I thought I'd go into, for example, the first doctor was this renowned doctor, and I was reading articles left and right about this guy, and he was the biggest moron I've ever met in my life. So just because somebody is the doctor has that position, it doesn't mean that they really know what it is, and you really have to meet them halfway. It's like finding a mechanic or somebody that's working on your car. You still have to know a little bit about your car, and you've got to know certain things, so you don't get ripped off. It's the same thing with medicine. I mean, there were so many times where we would, for example, the device that saved my daughter's life, which is the vagus nerve stimulator. We went to this doctor who's still considered the number one neurologist in, I don't know, sometimes they call him the world, but he never mentioned VNS simply because of the fact that he's paid to push pharmaceutical drugs. And that's, you follow these models, and the model right now is pharmaceutical. It's pushing medication. So they're going to suggest a medication. It's not, if I'm told, that you're, I was told a few weeks ago that I had diabetes, and I said, okay, well, I can just cut out sugar. Type 2 diabetes, I'll just cut out sugar and cut out carbs. Oh no, you have to take these 2 medications, and then all these 2 medications have these crazy side effects, and I don't want to do that. I'd rather just cut out the food. Mm-hmm. But that's not what my doctor is recommending. So kind of like with epilepsy, it's had to go find another doctor, and that's what we did. We were just moving around to other doctors. But I would see other people that would not leave the doctor just because they thought this guy, he was the leader in medicine and he could do no wrong.
Well, and you mentioned the analogy with a mechanic, and my experience, I can build a house, but I can't fix a car, and so I would, if I'm going to go talk to a mechanic, I'm just like, I hope, man, they better not be using technical terms on me, because I know this is going to come, like they're going to see my stupidity immediately, and then now I'm not in a good balance of this relationship. Like they can just tell me anything. And is that kind of how it felt when you went to some of these doctors? I got the impression that you did not necessarily appreciate highfalutin medical terms versus the doctors that sat down and explained it in common lay terms.
Well, yeah, it's a total game. It's all the ego also. And, it's very one-sided. You're the patient and you're not supposed to really know anything. And they, the one doctor in particular would have very young nurses around him, and they would kind of it was really like this show of his, he's fluffing his feathers and how wonderful he is, and nothing ever got accomplished. And my wife and I would bring all this information to him, and he would, ignore it. And that same guy where we went to, for years, we took the same, it would be taking my daughter's MRI, her CAT scans, all of her blood work, everything to different doctors. And then the hospital would say, we can't accept this because it's a different hospital. You've got to redo everything, her EEG and everything, all this exhausting kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And you would get different results from different people. And then you would have to regroup and kind of figure stuff out again. But that doctor had read her MRI wrong for 5 years. And a new doctor was like, oh, no, this is where the seizures are coming from. So all this information, all these years, all these, exhaustion, waiting in line and stuff. And he was completely wrong with what he did. And nothing ever happened to him. Right. He's still there.
This week on Federal Hospital, our little Finley visits the intrusive state doctor for a checkup.
Okay, Finley, your blood pressure looks really good. If you just hop up here on the examination table, I'll get the doctor and we can finish your checkup.
Then do I get a sucker?
You can have a sucker, or lots of kids like a healthy snack provided by our friendly and trustworthy pharmaceutical sales reps.
Get your HPV shot today. It's 100% necessary. Human papillo.
Hello, Finley. How are you feeling today?
Good.
That's good. Let's see here. Stick out your tongue. Say, ah.
Ah.
Good. Now, take a deep breath. Okay, one more. Very good. Now, Finley, I have a couple more questions to ask you on behalf of our government, and then we can get a nice, healthy snack, okay?
I said I wanted a candy sucker.
I see. Well, let's just make note of that. Okay, now, Finley, do your mommy and daddy live together?
Yes.
And are there any guns in the house?
Oh, yes, we have lots of guns.
I see. How many guns do you have in your house, do you think?
Maybe 5. Wait, does crossbow count as a bow and arrow?
Oh, well, I'm not sure. I'll just mark it down as a gun since it has a trigger. So 6 guns then at home?
No, 8. We have 3 crossbows.
Okay.
But that's nothing compared to my Uncle Troy. He has lots of guns. I don't even know how many he has.
Really?
Yeah, at Thanksgiving time, we all bring our guns to Sunnyside and shoot the turkey, like a zillion times.
You shoot the turkey for Thanksgiving dinner?
No, silly, we eat the turkey, then we all take our guns out and stick it on a big stick and take turns shooting until it falls off the stick.
And then what?
Well, if we have another turkey, we shoot at that one.
So there are a lot of guns in your family?
Duh.
Oh, sweetheart. Do you feel safe?
Oh, yes, we have lots of guns. Now, how about that sucker?
Join us next week on Federal Hospital when a new doctor is introduced.
Warm greetings to you all. So if they get up and criticize science, nobody's going to know what they're talking about. Because I represent science.
You had so many doctors that you went through in the book, and so I'm not exactly sure which one this is, but I know it, and perhaps it's the one that you referred to as let's say Dr. Shathid. There was one, maybe that was the guy perhaps that was saying things, that he had misread it, but then you had a different doctor, which you gave the moniker Dr. Hope, and she was very helpful.
Yes, and she's the doctor that we have now, and she's, I kind of went through the same thing. She left her hospital, and we're scrambling to try to find her and get to the other hospital and jumping hoops. So we finally, in the last couple of months, were able to see her again. But you don't want to lose the person that you're relying on. And all these, doctors, they're kind of changing. They're going to different places. And she said it also. There's a lot of politics to it.
Right. Yeah. Well, doctors do move around. I was military for 26 years. And so they said, well, you can just pick whoever you want to be your doctor. And I was like, well, that's amazing. So I did my research and I found my doctor, and I was like, based on ratings. And then I told him when I met him, I was like, listen, you're my age. I'm going to need a doctor for a long time. You'll be my guy. And he's like, how did you hear him? I was like, oh, your ratings. He's like, where did these ratings come? He wasn't aware of these ratings, which was interesting. And it was with Mayo Clinic. So I thought, well, this is wonderful. We're lucky to be not too far away from Mayo Clinic in our neck of the woods. And so then he had his little procedure that he thought was amazing, and I thought he was a great doctor. And the next thing you know, he moved on to a different hospital. And I'm like, dang it! I got to go through the whole process again. And that's nothing compared to the serious situations that you guys were dealing with Vivien, for sure. So
no, I think it can be soul crushing when your doctor leaves because you had such a relationship with them. And
that's right. Doctors, pay attention. You mentioned VNS, and I think that's important. Well, it's a huge part of the story. It appears towards the end of your book. But please, for the listeners, explain VNS, what that is, and how that ultimately made such a difference for Vivien.
The VNS is the vagus nerve stimulator. So we have the vagus nerve that goes to our brain, and then we have another one that goes to our stomach. And so it's a device that is implanted, and it leads attached to your vagus nerve. So it's sending electronic impulses. It's basically interrupting the seizures. And so beyond the seizures for my daughter, it kind of like a light bulb that turned on, where before she would have insomnia, or she would have, memory loss, or she would have brain fog. It just kind of put everything together, and it's keeping her brain in check. So she's able to concentrate and was able to focus where she couldn't do that before. So besides stopping the seizures, it's doing so many other things, which was just amazing to me. And it's not a cure, but it's come pretty close, and it's allowed her to progress and be a happy little kid. And she's, somebody there were 2 doctors that said she never progressed past the 2nd grade.
You had a doctor that said that, used the term that, she might be retarded. I didn't know that doctors said that anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And you were not liking that. You used the success rate of VNS at 80%, and you compared that to your success rate in college, saying, hey, C's get degrees. 70% was good enough for me. I'll take 80 any day.
Oh yeah, and my daughter's, my daughter's getting straight A's, which is blowing my mind. And she's, to the classes that I failed, she's, progressing in. So the fact that she's had such a huge setback, she's pretty much has half of her brain is only fully formed. So half a brain, she's doing 4 times better than I ever did. And I'm blown away. And I do owe it all to the VNS, because it's just allowed her to be able to be a kid again. And
VNS is kind of, you described it as it's a mechanical solution to this situation, and there's something involving a magnet. I know that. I read that and I didn't quite understand it, but it had been around for 20 years when you wrote the book, and this was the first time that you'd heard of it.
Yeah, and a lot of it just comes down to that it's about $30,000. It's covered by insurance, but like the medications that she was taking, some of those medications are $1,500 a month. So they're making more money off of medications than they are this simple little. And then of course you don't have to go back to the doctor. So we're getting farther and farther away from having to see neurologists anymore. We see them once a year, where we used to be going, once a week.
Yeah.
So it all just sadly, it just all comes down to money. But it's worked. Everybody again wants that cure. It's not a cure, but it's a tool in a toolbox, and I look at it. It's a pacemaker for her brain. It's, if you were having, if you needed a pacemaker, you would certainly go and get one. And so it's able for her to maintain every day and live her life.
It's kind of amazing to think how quickly technology has evolved, and specifically what I'm talking about is the amount of information that we are able to glean from the internet today. Vivien was born in 2007, and that doesn't seem like that long ago, 17 years ago, but for most of us, if you think back to 2007, we're just starting to, I think the iPhone had just started to come around, and so that thing that we're just taking for granted right now of being immediately able to kind of research and at the tip of our fingers with our phone, that is something that was kind of happening at the same time. So you're starting to go through this stuff, and while you're waiting in hospital rooms, you're using what is fairly still new technology. We had the internet, and we had the ability to Google things, but it wasn't the same since the iPhone came out. And even talk about Nicole, she's using, not necessarily researching anything, she was just on her iPhone at one point. When you passed the hospital that you had been to, and Vivien had pointed out, I was like, I remember that place. And so is that something that, getting back to that creative and being creative and kind of solving your own problems and being your own advocate, is that something that you acknowledge, like, wow, thank goodness that we had the technology at the rapid level of improvement that we did at this point in our lives? Oh,
absolutely. And it's interesting to me to see the amount of technology that we have, and the amount of information, and the amount of people that don't want to improve. It seems like we have more information and we're getting dumber. And the people that
correct. Yes.
They don't want to simply, I used to have to go to a library, and then I would go to the library and there would be a lady there that was, like in her 90s, and she's chain smoking, and you were embarrassed to go there because you didn't want to perceive that you were dumb. And you would go in there and you have to go look through the card catalog, and then you try to find a book, and the book was never there. And it would just be like, you just gave up. And Now everything is at your fingertips. I love it. I could not, the fact that I can look at anything up all the time, and then share that with Vivien, because Vivien loves, she's studying World War I right now. She loves history.
Oh,
Those
wow.
are stuff that I never cared about any of that stuff before, but a lot of it had to do, I didn't have access to it. And especially with VNS, you have, it's getting better and better, and you have, Neuralink coming out, but you have all these people that they just want to put it down and they're afraid of it. And I think it's great. I mean, I would love to have one. I think it's great. It would save so many people's lives, and the fact that the things that we take for granted, and coming from where my daughter came from to now, it's like it would improve so many people's lives.
Right. The accessibility to be able to just know as a parent that there are other people going through a situation similar to your own. You indicated that at the time when you wrote the book anyway, the stat that you said it was like over 3 million, 3.3, 3.4 million people have this form or have the epilepsy, or is that the right? Did I get the right number there?
Yeah, and you have 65 million people worldwide. The United States doesn't keep track of any of this stuff, but you did have the most numbers when I would research it in California. You had the most children in California, so you had 100,000 kids in LA County, but you only had one hospital that was dealing with it at the time. Mm-hmm. I know that we started. I think Vivien was the eighth child to get VNS in LA County, but they really didn't. They were just starting the wing there. The other hospital that we were at didn't even have it, but wouldn't even talk about it or say that they were thinking about getting it. So now they have one. So a lot, even in this last 10 years, has changed a lot. I love seeing that. I love the fact that our doctor that we had moved over to another hospital, and she's creating a whole nother wing just specifically for VNS and epilepsy. But with my job in law enforcement, I would meet so many people that had epilepsy, were having seizures, and they were so afraid to talk about it because so many people just laugh and say it's not a big deal. And then I would try to put that down in their file, and I would, be told I'm not allowed to because I'm not a doctor or I'm not in the medical field.
Right.
So there's so many people. That number is so low, and there's so many people that are just lost in this system that just refuses to do anything about it, and continues to refuse to do anything about it.
You recognized in one particular point in the book that you witnessed a traffic accident where you saw the truck driver go through an intersection, and you recognized that he was having a seizure. And tell us about that.
Yeah, and I still have, still have that video on my phone. And I videoed the seizure because I wanted to take that to the hospital and show the paramedics, because so many times with my daughter, and especially with this guy also, paramedics showed up, police showed up. No, he's just drunk. He's not having a seizure. You're not a doctor. You don't know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. I argued with 911. I argued with the paramedics. I argued with the police. And it's just, you feel like it's this kind of institutionalized insanity. Nobody will recognize the obvious that's right in front of their faces. And it simply comes down to education and training. And they weren't training, I was in law enforcement 23 years. We never were trained on epilepsy and seizures. It was just something that everybody laughed at.
Well, and because like you said, they don't understand. And to be honest, I'm reading your book and I'm thinking the things the way you're describing the seizures, like I said, very well written, very easy to visualize what it is that you went through, and had recently, back in December, directed the community theater, big director out here. I don't know if you knew that or not, but had directed the community theater production of the best Christmas pageant ever. And we had one of our cast members who had experienced a seizure, and that had been something that she had been dealing with her entire life. She's in her late 20s. She's married, but it's just something that she is used to. And I was, as a director, not sure what was going on. Fortunately, we had people in our cast that were medically trained, and they recognized it immediately, and they knew how to take care of all of that stuff. So it's something that if you don't know what it is, you're just going to be kind of shocked and not sure what to do.
Yes, everybody kind of shuts down and takes their phone out and films it, and it just comes down to if you were simply just educated on it. Like, I take my daughter to school, and the school there was no law that said that the teachers had to be trained for epilepsy or seizures. I would sit there for hours in the morning because my daughter was usually having them out of her sleeper in the morning, just to make sure, because the school refused to do anything about it. And so I was the only one that was doing anything. Fortunately, we finally got a law passed in California where now they have to train teachers, all staff of the school to recognize. But, we went years with them never having to acknowledge that my daughter had, a life-threatening disability.
You approached just about every scenario that you ran into, and there are many in the book, where at first you just, every time you try to reason with people and find their empathy, which often just wasn't present. And regardless of whether it was the school or the hospital, your own workplace and all of that. And eventually, it seemed like to get anything done, you would have to go to a lawyer.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I still... the idea also that, everybody will just tell you, well, go get a lawyer. It's so hard to get a lawyer and find a lawyer and then find one that you can afford to pay for. I mean, it's such a broken system that we all just kind of ignore also. And I feel so bad for anybody that actually has to go and do that, because it could be so simple. But everything's handled by lawyers and getting sued, and nobody kind of acknowledges anything until they are sued and forced to do anything.
Right. And for you, I think and I could be wrong, but it seemed like most of the time it was once a lawyer was involved and they started communicating directly for you, just the fact that there was a lawyer on the other end of the phone, regardless of whether there was ever a suit, just the possibility of that made things suddenly.
Oh, it woke them up, because it scared them. When my daughter had a seizure at our local hospital, she had one for an hour, and they told us that she was drunk, and she was 6 at the time, I think.
Really?
Oh yeah. Okay. And it was the same, and it was all same staff that we'd been there many times before. So I had to, in that situation, I had to, pretty much threaten an attorney. I didn't get one. I didn't pay for one, but I went to the hospital administration. I pulled her records. Then I went back with the same records to the hospital administrators, the board, and I showed them, this is what your doctor did. The doctor still never took responsibility for it. He made a bunch of excuses. All the hospital staff made excuses. They all banded together against us. And I just said, this is simply what I want. I want a written letter that says you're going to do your job. And shockingly enough, they gave me that letter. So then the next time that I went, because I knew there was going to be a next time where my daughter was going to be in the exact same hospital, I would take that letter with me, and I would show that to the other doctor. Hey, I've got authority. You need to do your job. It sounds so ridiculous and so insane, but that's what it is. You have to force you have to force a lot of people to just do their job.
Absolutely. And that brings up the opportunity to discuss some of, I wouldn't say necessarily favorite characters as individuals, but you do come up with some great names. You got your Ricky Schroeder principal.
Yeah, and I remember him. Yeah.
Was not a real helpful human being. And then what was it? Snot Rocket, Mrs. Snot Rocket.
Yes.
She seemed like a real wonderful educator, and I think she was the one that was she the one that told you that she'd been doing this for 38 years and blah blah blah, and you're like, maybe it's time for you to retire.
Yeah, and a lot of. Like the Ricky Schroeder guy, he got promoted.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens to a lot of these people. They'll never do their job the right way, and they'll get promoted. So he's a principal at a new school, a school that has more funding, and he has more control over new things. And Mrs. Snot Rocket is still there, and she's on her 45th year. And you get generation-wise, you get people that were, I would see this in hospitals. Is they were trained in the 50s or 60s,
right?
Completely different now, and they refuse to use technology. They refuse to use computers. They have somebody else do it for them. So they're very stuck in their ways of what they're doing. And again, the ego gets in the way, and they're in these powerful positions in that kind of little city that they're in, of a hospital or a school, and they wield a lot of authority, and they don't want to see anything but their way. And so you go up a lot of times that's what I would go up against.
You would have to, because Vivien, like you mentioned, would have her seizures, if they did happen, would happen typically when she first woke up. And so you would try, but then you thought at a certain point, if it's after 9 o'clock, she's probably good for the day, or at least for the main part of the day, and then indicated to the teachers, like, don't have her take a nap because you don't want to have her come out of the sleep and all of that. And I think that worked fairly well. But there was just so much, it's just heart-wrenching reading your account of, as a father, watching your daughter. So, just the whole, I'm not going around the back of the school to put her in line. And if you're late, then you have to go to the front, and you're always getting a late pass. And if you don't go to the back, then the teacher's going to mark you're absent. And then you have to go to the school board, and you have to, you leave there with a warning because there's too many absences, even though Vivien was there. And it's just like all these hard and fast, stupid rules, unempathetic characters, and whether it's, and you give them great names like, Mrs. Snot Rocket and so forth. But it's just astounding to me that Mike, I got to be honest with you, like a lot of that, what you experienced, and I might be naive because my kids don't have those epilepsy or other issues like that. But at the same token, when I live here in Iowa, I can't believe the harshness of, you say your pharmacy doesn't know what's, they see you all the time, and they still don't necessarily acknowledge that they see you all the time. And of course we're in a small town, and so it's I know there's small towns in California and small towns all over the place, but it just seems like, man, I guess there's advantages to be in the big city because maybe you have some additional resources that we don't have here in a rural area, but I just couldn't imagine. I don't have to go to the pharmacy very often, but I can't imagine Jason Miller not saying, "Hey, Troy, what's going on?" It's just a different experience. And teachers,
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Of course, I'm on the school board, so I'm just listening, reading this, and I'm going, "What kind of animals? Like, who are these?" And then that principal was going to run for school board. Like, they can do that in California. I didn't think you could work for the district and then also run for the school board, like be in charge of the people that are in charge of you. That doesn't seem good at all.
No, you're right. It's because I'm in Los Angeles County in California, and it's just, especially LA County, it's no different from San Francisco. It's just a dumpster fire of bad politics. And it's just people are just hand over fist stealing everything that they can. And then if you call them on it, we have a huge corruption right now with politicians. There's a huge trial going on, and it's not really covered, but you have this really deep corruption going on with all of these politicians that were stealing everything. And that just continues to happen. And if you ever call any of these people out on it, they attack you. It's just narcissism. But of course, it's Hollywood. So unfortunately, you just have people. I always say the Crooner-Dunning effect. You have overly confident, stupid people, and especially in a lot of areas in government. But California is horrible. Certain states are. But we considered going to other states, and we were looking at, we were in crisis mode for a long time, looking to, just for that reason, we've got to go find a place where people just do their job. And we could have a support system.
Ooh, that tastes weird. Honey, is there something wrong with our water? Ever since I visited Sunnyside, the water tastes so weird.
Does your water taste weird after returning from God's country to the city?
Yes, who is that?
It's me, the Mulligan Man.
Who?
The Mulligan Man from Mulligan, giving everyone a chance to start over with clean water.
What's wrong with my water?
Does it have a slightly communal, stale, generally poverty-stricken kind of flavor?
Yeah, it's kind of like...
Like water from a gulag urinal?
Yes. Wait, is that a thing? Do they have urinals?
They had buckets.
But what is that awful taste in my water?
That, comrade, is the distinct flavor of communism.
Communism?
Yes, well, technically it's the flavor of Marxist chloride, but it has the same effect. You can find it in every urban water supply in America.
But I thought it was fluoride.
That too.
Well, I don't like it. What can I do, Mulligan Man? Get rid of that bad socialist taste in my water.
You're in luck, you classical liberal. With Mulligan, you can install an iron curtain filter just for this kind of problem.
Really?
Of course! What better way to remove the red flavor of communism from your centrally planned city water supply than with the innovative machinery of free enterprise?
Well, that makes sense. Okay, Mulligan Man, I want another chance at the taste of freedom. Let's get that Iron Curtain filter installed.
You betcha, Pilgrim. When things taste a little too commie in your water, you know who to call.
Hey, Mulligan Man!
For my wife and I, it was a big struggle, always constantly fighting.
How? Yeah, you mentioned. Well, you don't get into the details. You just what a tremendous stress that was. And you indicated that was the case with you and Nicole. I mean, raising a child with all of these situations and all of the stresses on from the hospitals and the schools and just the stress of fearing for your daughter's life all the time. That obviously weighed very heavily on both of you. And but you guys were able to make it.
Yeah, and I think the reason that we did was my wife and I are a good team. We work as a good team, and completely different than how I grew up. But it was just living day to day, and it really taught me so much, though, and humbled me, and really made me fortunate for my life. Because prior to all this, I really didn't have any struggles, and really in your life, I wouldn't ask this to happen, but it really is the struggles that make you appreciate your life, and coming out the other side of it, things are so much better. And I look back on all those hard times, and I always kind of think, what's going to come next, but I'm just so grateful for what I have now.
We talk about in the book, you and Nicole avoided social gatherings because you say you didn't want to participate in the parent competition. Can you give our audience some more details on that part of your life and how it affected you and Nicole?
Oh yeah, I think you get, you fall into these categories, especially when your kids are young, and you'd have, I would go watch my child at school, and then people want to make comments to you, like, oh, you're the overbearing parent because you're holding your kid's hand, or no, I'm holding my kid's hand because she has mobility issues and she falls down a lot because she has epilepsy. And you just kind of go through these processes of thinking, you're resentful to other things, but then you just realize people just don't understand because they're, not aware of it. But people, they're just making the same comments, like, have you tried smoking weed? I can see that you have. I'm not going to smoke weed with my kid.
Yeah.
So you're just getting you're getting the same questions and answers from people, and nothing's getting resolved. And then you're seeing, you're kind of, the outside world is going past you, and you're stuck because you're stuck in this seizure mode of watching your kids suffer, and then nobody understands, and then nobody really knows what to say. I totally get that also. It's like when somebody passes away, you don't know what to say. And people are stop talking to you, and that's what happened to us. Family and friends just stop talking to you because they don't know what to say. And I don't have any resentment or anger towards them, and I totally get it, and that's just the reality. But I totally understand when you kind of meet other parents and who are in that same situation, and they get it. And I think that's human nature. You kind of gravitate towards the people that are thinking the same way that you are,
Oh, absolutely. I find it shocking, though, that you didn't take the weed smoker's advice. Like, you didn't say, hey, we'll put Vivien in the car seat and we'll drive through this particular neighborhood with the windows down. She'll get a contact eye and everything else will be all right. Just drive through, roll heavy through this one neighborhood. No, that didn't work. My goodness. Well, if there was, there were certain very poignant, there were many poignant parts of the book. There's a lot of P's there. It's a good thing I'm talking across and not into the microphone. And it was, something that stuck out with me was the friend bench, or the friendly bench. And that's just like ripped my heart out. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that was their big solution was, the bench was to, if my daughter had any problems, she was going to sit on this bench, and then everybody was going to come to her, to be her friend. And then so she thought, oh, well, that's what they're telling me to do. So she went and sat on the bench, and nobody came over to talk to her because she was very alienated by her, her seizures and her epilepsy. And that was one of the things with her epilepsy, was she couldn't comprehend how to subtext. We're talking to people and how to make friends and how to approach. And it was very sad as a parent to watch that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is, and I can just imagine it. And that's just you talk about, visiting her at school and, experiencing that and finding out, how she felt about that situation. She said, I didn't have any friends. And that would just be, any parent would just completely be heartbroken by that. And you handled it very well, and so it's just a wonderful book. Listen, folks, if you got to buy the book Vivien's Reign: My Daughter's Battle with Epilepsy. You can download, you can buy it, download it. You can get it anywhere. You can get the hard copy, whatever you want to do. It's just a great book, and we're just hitting certain points of it. It's just obviously what we're spending a lot of time talking about, but for good reason. Now, you say that. You like to, at one point you like to think of God as a math equation that you never seem to understand. Can you talk about that some more?
Yeah, I especially having a child that was constantly, kind of our family's in crisis, and my child is constantly sick, and watching her suffer, I think you struggle with your faith. And I really, was trying to look and see for this proof. And I don't look at it that way anymore. I look at it like it's a formula, like mathematics, to follow. If you follow this certain mathematical formulation, like if you're a good person and you do good things are going to come in your return. And that's what you do. And I think that's true in mathematics, is you're forming the solution and the outcome is your answer. And it's going to turn out pretty, and I continue to see this is, if you just live a good life and you're good to other people and you're not trying, there's so many people that are trying to scam and scheme people and rip people off. And it seems, especially where I live, it's like exploded into just stealing from everybody and lying. And if you just live a good life and you follow, that formula, I think you're going to turn out okay. And people just refuse to do that.
Yeah, well, you mentioned, at a certain point later in the book, you had obviously, understandably, a lot of pent-up frustration, anger, disappointment, and all of these things. And obviously, just doubts and concerns and arriving at that, it's a mystery, and it has to be, it's I guess it's our pleasure to try to solve, or a puzzle to put together to some degree. Then you also, indicated that you just I just had to let it go. Like I had to let go my frustration with other people, my anger with my boss, Glenn, which is a whole other chapter in and of itself. And we can talk a little bit more about that, but give me, what did that do for you for when you just said, I gotta let this go, or it's going to eat me alive?
Well, one of the, one of the big things for me was I got so caught up in my job because that was my life. And after I retired, I didn't really realize it took a few months for me to decompress and then going, just not being at work and all that stress. I lost 30 pounds and I was no longer having to take medications for headaches or high blood pressure. And it kind of all melted away. But a lot of it was me hanging on to the anger and frustration of having, a boss or coworkers that just didn't get it either. And it really was up to me to, I certainly didn't have to leave. I could have stayed for the money, but health wise, that's not the way I want to live my life. And a year later out, looking back, it was the best decision I ever did, but I didn't know it at the time. I felt so trapped. But if I didn't let go of those things that were causing me all those problems, and I really didn't realize how many things were causing me how much of it was work that was causing me all these problems. It was pretty much, 99% of it. You kind of got to step into the darkness. And I think that's everything in life. You can't really see. And I think that also goes back to, the world that we live in, and a creator is, you really can't see it. You have to take that leap of faith into that darkness and really step out to what you are secure with. And then I think you're going to grow and expand in your life. I feel so much healthier now, and mentally and physically because of doing that. And it all just came from leaving a job that was horrible.
Well, but did you need? I mean, I get it. You needed the money. Obviously, if that was a huge concern, and you also needed the insurance, like probably more than the money, considering all of the things that you needed. And I get the government has pretty good health care for the most part. I had it in the military, and I can attest it was a relief to retire, walk away, and be done with it, put that uniform in the closet, appreciate the things that I had and the friends that I made, but also not have to do that anymore was a huge relief. And I'm assuming that you're able to keep many of those benefits after retiring.
Oh yeah, and they were, that was another thing that I had to let go of. Also, was that there was nobody there to help me retire.
Mm-hmm.
You go through this huge process. They go back like 3 years and do an audit on you, but these people that are supposed to be helping you calculate everything, they're not there because they don't want to do their job. And that was another big kind of leap of faith for me, was calculating out, am I going to be able to survive off of this?
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, it turned out pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know. I just wanted to get out of there because I hated every day that I was there.
Yeah, I understand completely. And I don't know how it is in the I guess it's the penal system or whatever in California, but in the military, they just change people around all the time. So like the person that you thought you were working with for your retirement or whatever it happens to be, they're like, oh well, now it's Captain Schmuckatelli over here, and they just got promoted into this position, and they came from the infantry, so they're going to be useful with paperwork, and so yeah, I get it. I can empathize with that, but good for you. Glad that you're able to do the things and that make you happy, and that you've got some a foundation. Obviously, you've been doing this for quite a while with Vivien, and she's 17 now, so things are I would assume much better.
Oh yeah, she's what I always hear from people when I say that my daughter's 17, they're like, oh my gosh, is she on heroin? Is she running away every night? No, she's just a happy kid.
Yeah.
And it really is how our society perceives things, and a lot of it has to do with what we're viewing and watching all the time. It's just everything's so negative.
Yeah.
Everything is just this doom and gloom and living in crisis, and I just have a happy kid.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's how it's supposed to be. They're supposed to be kids at 17. They're supposed to be allowed to still be children to some degree. They're obviously coming into adulthood and all of that stuff, but they aren't. There's no rush to it. And you're out there and in California, and I love movies too. We'll get to pop culture stuff that I want to kind of spring on you in a little bit, but the idea that it just seems like Hollywood, for example, really puts out an image of what a family is or isn't, and parents are stupid and kids are supposed to be I don't know, some goth or whatever, or they're complete. It's just all caricatures, and I don't really like that, because I look at the families that I know and I'm around, and I'm just like, well, I suppose everybody, if you're around them, think you think that's normal, but yeah, it's good. They're not supposed to be. She's had enough stress and strife. You don't need to add what maybe the world thinks teenagers ought to be like.
And then I still get shocked when I have a teenager that's polite to me, because I believe what I see on TV. It just kind of absorbs into your brain. You don't even know it, but I'm thinking these kids are going to be snarky to me and treat me like garbage. And it's not really the truth. But it is what's portrayed on TV. I don't think we've had a good, loving family on TV in the last 30 years. Yeah,
right. I mean, we had the Huxtables, but that went a different direction. We found out.
That didn't turn out too good.
Yeah, I suppose our perception of the world is genuinely influenced by the things that we take in, whether it's literature or TV or YouTube or whatever. Let's talk a little bit about, jump back to Vivien's interaction with God. She says, I died, I met God. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is, I think this also plays into, it was a very personal moment, which I also think that's purpose of faith, is that it is a personal moment, because once you venture outside and then you start to tell people about that story, which you want to, I was very excited to hear this, but then people want to immediately put you down for it. So when Vivien, she had her first seizure. It was where she had flatlined, and she pretty much conveyed to us that she had passed away. And then she talked about meeting God, and that God had told her that it wasn't her time and that she was going to, come back to her family. So it was this moment where, kind of all time stood still, but it was also a moment where it was, thank goodness something is telling us that everything's going to be okay. We've gone through this horrible, life seems so horrible, but there's this, light at the end of the tunnel. So it was just so comforting to hear that and especially from our child. But then you kind of take that and you go, well, what am I supposed to do with this? And you're waiting for it to happen again, and it doesn't happen again. And you're thinking, is it going to, is this experience going to happen? Is something, going to point us in the right direction? And it doesn't happen. So you kind of go through all these phases again where you kind of feel like you're let down, and then you're struggling again with your faith, and you're struggling again with what am I going to do? And so I kind of, looked at it and processed it, and, thought I was so fortunate that I was able to hear that no matter what it is or what happened. But for Vivien, it took her in such a direction with her faith that we had never kind of discussed with her before. And that was all on her own. And she continues to kind of, she doesn't talk about talking to God. She doesn't really remember it anymore, but she is, she goes to Christian school now, and she is a Christian and just loves to talk about anything. Her reference is always to the Bible and living a good faith. And to me, that's just so wonderful to hear as a parent who, still kind of struggles with these questions of life.
Yeah, of course. That's wonderful. Well, good job as a parent for you and Nicole, and obviously all of the things that Vivien has experienced. Just very, very, very special person, and I don't mean that as a throwaway comment. It's just so evident in the book, and it's wonderful in what you're saying. Hello, friends and neighbors. This is Troy Thompson of the Sunnyside of Life. Let's spend this year together reading the Word of God. Just take 10 to 15 minutes a day to join with me in the Sunnyside of Life's Bible in a Year experience. It may be just what you need. Lord knows I do. Besides, it's free, it's fast, and it's good for your soul. And you can start anytime. It doesn't take much to get caught up and on pace with us each day. So, whether you've read the Bible entirely already or you're just looking for a way to get it done, take a few moments with me here and let the good book be the sunny side of your life each and every day. I do have, I do want to get to, I want to wrap up, not necessarily the interview, but with the pop culture significance of a few things that you touch on in your book, and I'm just going to say them, and then you can expound on them accordingly, however you wish. There are some things that affect you, and you use lots of, I guess pop culture references, in there to some degree, and I'm just going to hit a couple of them. First of all, the significance behind Jim Abrams.
Yeah, Jim Abrams he runs the Charlie Foundation. His son, he's the director of Airplane and a lot of other movies. And I kind of look at it also as a kind of spiritual also, these kind of people that I would meet. And Jim Abrams was one of the very first. I was going through this huge crisis of my daughter having epilepsy, and I went to a function that was about epilepsy. He was one of the speakers, and I immediately recognized who he was. And it's kind of it's comforting to know that there are people out there, because I was having so many problems trying to find answers and communicate with somebody. And he was very nice and spent his time talking to me. And he runs the Charlie Foundation for his son. And his is about the keto diet, basically restricting sugars, which is another tool in the toolbox. There's a big correlation between sugar and seizures, or sugar and carbs. And when you're on keto, you're restricting that. And it works for a lot of people, but there's also a lot of people that are against it because of pharmaceutical companies. Mm-hmm. But Jim was somebody who's still a huge advocate for epilepsy, and he's been doing it for many years. And his son, Charlie, doesn't have seizures anymore. And his son's an adult now. And it was just such a turning point for me, knowing here's somebody else that knows what I'm going through and somebody that I could physically talk to. And it was just for a small moment. I think that's in life. It's the small moments in life. It's not these huge events. It's these little moments. And that was, for me, one was talking to him, because it was somebody that I just, as a writer, director, it was somebody that I idolized, and still do.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Pick the wrong day to quit smoking. It's just, I love that. Love all those movies. Well, how about here's another one that you mentioned. Just explain the significance of the song "Eye of the Tiger."
Yeah, so that was I kind of put that in there with, especially growing up in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
That was such a great 80s song, and I always felt like when I got to my lowest, if I put on that song, you're kind of fighting through it. And I always looked at it like, our kind of heroes of the 80s don't exist anymore, and you kind of you have to be your own hero, especially in those situations when you're going in and out of the hospital and you're fighting for yourself. And so I always think about that song. We would always play that song, and every time it comes on the radio, it's just very, especially music can bond us all together.
Yes.
So, and it was the little things that I always look for. And so when I would hear that song, I would go, oh, good, everything's going to be okay by listening to that song.
It does pick you up. I mean, I would run and have my own running list. And as I got older in the military, I got slower in my run, but I'd still have to run the same distance. And then I'd be like, I'll just probably listen to my music and then be done at a certain point. I'm like, that's probably enough for me today. And then all of a sudden that one would roll in and I'd be like, I can do a little bit more.
Oh yeah, it'll push you.
because it's not the anti-hero. The pop culture's so full of anti-heroes and you're just sick of it. You're just like, I want Rocky Balboa. I want the hero. That's probably why I like Reacher, that series, so much, from Lee Child, because it's just like, no, just the ultimate, just the hero. And you're right. We don't have that from the 80s. A little bit older than the 80s, though. Talk about Nat King Cole and the song Love.
Yeah. So that was, and again, that's something that I've kind of forgotten about, but that was at a point where we didn't know whether she was going to be, there was a lot of times where Vivien would kind of be, she was there, but you could tell she was distant. And a lot of it, she was on heavy medication, and we didn't quite know, my wife and I were talking, is she going to be able to keep up in school? And she was delayed in a lot of areas. And so we went to her, she had a recital at school, and she got up and sang and was so energetic and sang that song. And so that was another turning point, was, wow, she's going to be okay. And maybe a lot of it is also me as a parent, thinking that it's not going to be okay. And I'm this way now also, is like, she's going to be okay. I mean, she's a extremely smart kid. And a lot of it is me taking, my insecurities as from a child or as a teenager and putting that on my child. And now getting to the point where she's 17 and she's going to, be going off to school, going off to college. I think she's going to be okay. And so times like that, and especially with that song, it was a good day. And you have good days and you have bad days when you have a sick kid. And that was a good day.
Well, you painted the picture perfectly, as you do throughout the book, and it's just a great scene. If you want to look at it like if it was a movie, I mean, that's just awesome. And then when you were preparing Vivien for VNS for that situation, you had just seen the movie Iron Man, but you said, I need to do something that's helping her understand. So the Bionic Woman.
Yeah, I didn't know how to talk to my kid about that she had to have this huge surgery. And I was, my wife and I were just so scared. How do you approach that? And I remembered the Bionic Woman, and I got the DVDs because it wasn't available. And what was great about it was this, 1970s technology. So they're basically just dropping a battery into her ear during the scene, but it was so perfect for a child because it totally resonated with my daughter, where she thought, oh, I'm going to be this superhero and this is going to be awesome. And so going into it just lifted this huge weight of going into this huge surgery. And she was, obviously she was afraid, but she was also kind of excited about it. And so it was just such a great tool to teach. And I tell parents that now because for some reason the hospitals don't do it. But if you have a son that's going to get VNS, it's like Iron Man. And if you're getting a daughter, it's like the Bionic Woman. And I just think that it's a great kind of basis for parents because there's no book on anything. There's nobody, you kind of rely on other people. And that's a large reason why I still do talk to parents who are getting the VNS surgery for their kids for that reason. I didn't have anybody there.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump to some other things, Mike. You talked about your career in law enforcement, and can you just expand a little bit on what it is that what you did as a parole agent? And the question that I'll ask is, do you feel sorry for the people that are in prison?
So what I would do is a parole agent is part of the Department of Corrections. So I worked in a prison for 5 years, and then I went out on the streets, and you're just supervising those guys that get out on parole. And the idea of it is that you're supposed to be helping them, housing them, and getting them jobs, which you really just don't, because those resources, they're farmed out to other companies. It's not part of the Department of Corrections. So it's kind of a facade about it. And you have a caseload of about, fluctuate between 60 and 100, and you have to see them some twice a month, some once a month, but you're just spending all of your time driving around LA County trying to find them because they're criminals. They don't want to be found. I didn't feel sorry for them because it takes a lot for you to go to prison. It was usually about 20 to 30 arrests before you're actually sent to prison. Mm-hmm. But I did have compassion for some of them because you would see their stories, and it is a very dysfunctional system where, if I did have time to read their story, I would, but you can see how some of them had, they got sentenced on a technicality. They had a bad attorney. They didn't have enough money to get out of, it kind of blows my mind that the amount of times like Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and he plea bargained, the amount of times that he was able, just because of money, to get out of the situations that he was. And there are so many people that I would see that probably shouldn't have been in prison, but there were certainly killers and child molesters and horrible, horrible people that deserve to be in prison. But you would have more problems with the people that you worked with than the inmates. So you got to know the inmates every day, or you got to know the parolees. And me as a parole agent, I'm the only one talking to the parolees, and you get to hear their side of the story. These are people that grew up in horrible, families and were institutionalized from very early ages. And nobody is correcting any of that. This idea that it's the Department of Corrections is so laughable. They don't do anything they don't, first of all, sit down and go, hey, what family are you from? How were you raised? They don't ever look at anybody's background and try to work on that and try to work on therapy.
Well, that was my question that I had emailed. One of the questions I had emailed you is just like, do you think that the Department of Corrections correct anything? And I would say, unfortunately, that's probably not the case. Maybe it's the wrong name.
Yeah, that was another thing with when Schwarzenegger was the governor. They spent like $10 million just changing the patches on our uniforms and never did anything. And I was like, well, why don't we help these people? And then, if I brought that up, I was attacked for being an inmate lover. And it could be so simple. It's sitting down with them and saying, and which is I would do as a parole agent just for myself, was, hey, how'd your parents used to wake you up in the morning? Oh, they would throw hot coffee in my face or put cigarette butts on my forehead. It was just like crazy stories, which nobody should have to go through, but that was the reality for them. You read their files about, I write that in my other book on prison, where the guy had been burnt. His mother would set him on fire in the morning, light as an infant, around his high chair, pour gasoline because she thought he was the devil. So there are a lot of mental illness and just horrible, horrible stories. And then you're just supposed to, I would see a lot with these guys was they lacked trust because everybody had lied to them their whole lives. So why are they going to believe the parole agent that's trying to help them? They don't trust anybody.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. What's the other book called? I didn't read that one. The other book is called Straight Fish. And straight fish is when you're new when you're a new prison guard, you're called a straight fish because you don't know anything. And you're like the new fish in the big pond. But it was the same thing, just the dysfunction of the prison system. I just can't imagine I can sort of imagine how that meeting went with Governor Schwarzenegger when he's like, just change the uniform patches, everything will be fine. Yeah.
Yes, he was
He's just
it was
a
an
costume.
interesting 8 years too, because my union then spent millions of dollars trying to oust him out, which was so stupid, and it was like such a waste of money when I was working at that time. And that was another thing with my union, was you're giving all these union dues away for trying to battle Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was just so comical.
Oh my goodness, that's a subject for probably a whole nother episode, I'm sure. The comedy that you mentioned in your job, having worked with these inmates, these parolees, the experiences you've had as a member of the Department of Corrections in the state of California, the experiences you've had with Vivien, and all of these things. Talk about your comedy. What type of comedy? How would you describe your comedy, and how has all of this worked into your writing and development of what you produce?
So my comedy is observational, and it to me is therapeutic. It was me, especially when I started in the prison. It was, let's write this stuff down and we'll put stories together. And I kept getting more and more stories because it was just such a collection of stupid people. And again, I'm talking about the people I worked with, not the inmates. And so stuff would happen all the time. I mean, they were constantly, the other people that I worked with were getting arrested. Constantly people were getting fired. So to me, it was just comedy, and that's where comedy comes from. It comes from your vulnerability and your, that empathy. And you don't have anything else to do but laugh. And the prison was such a great for it, because it was its own city in itself. You're, every day you're housing and feeding 5,000 people plus, and supplying them with medical care and everything. So something's always bound to happen. And I knew kind of from the start that it would make, a great book, and people are interested in prison, because the prison doesn't like to talk about themselves. They don't like to allow outside visitors in. So it gives that, the strangeness to it and the anonymity. And so people are obviously interested in it. And that's what I tell people, is when they ask about prison, it's just like a TV show, anything can happen.
Hello, friends and neighbors. Do you have a dog? We do. His name is Knox, and he's a German Shepherd. We welcome Knox to our family as a puppy. He's about 90 pounds now. What we feed Knox is almost as important as what we feed ourselves. So, we buy our kibble from Munster Milling Company, spelled just like the cheese, Muenster. They're a fourth-generation family-owned and operated animal food manufacturer located in Munster, Texas, since 1932. Munster Milling follows a strict code of ethics, having created one of the first all-natural pet food diets in the country. Their ingredients are sourced as locally as possible, so they can verify exactly what goes into Knox's tummy. They test their products, making sure their innovative extruded animal food allows for maximum availability and absorption of nutrients, so Knox can perform optimally and live a healthier life. I trust Munster because they believe we should feed Knox with the same care and compassion as we would any other member of our family. And all the Munster recipes are formulated by PhD animal nutritionists, whether it's their awesome kibble, mixers, or treats. And since every dog is special, Munster can customize your order specifically suited to your dog's dietary needs with amazing enhancements such as salmon oil, probiotics, beef bone broth, bacon fat, MCT oil, dried salmon, goat's milk, dried liver, dried cheese, freeze-dried beef, elk, or chicken. Ingredients that your dog will just love and will help support their immune system, digestion, skin health, and shiny coats. I like Munster Milling Company for its customer service. They even send a nice little note with each delivery. And I can set my deliveries so they fit our schedule. Knox likes Munster for the taste. Maybe it's time for you to switch to Munster Milling Company too. Just click on the link in the show notes to get started and share the sunny side of life with your dog, just like Knox. Oh, and did I mention they have cat food too? Don't even get me started on that. Edith and Edie love Munster too. Go to the show notes, click on the link, and get started. Now, back to the show. So, where can people see you? You're performing. What are you up to?
So I mainly perform in Los Angeles, and just because I can't go and travel, I'm still taking care of my daughter. Mm-hmm. I still drive her to school and pick her up, and it's not going to last very long, so I'm sad about that. Mm-hmm. But anywhere in Los Angeles is where I'm always performing.
Wonderful. And then we'll how do people how do people find you? Where should they go if they want to learn more about you and or get in touch with you? What do you want to share with them?
You can find me on MikeKnox.com, or Instagram or TikTok is Mike Knox Comedy.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, if you ever do get the chance to travel, you're always welcome in the great state of Iowa. It's not quite California, but it's.
I'm moving to Iowa. Trust me.
No. Wonderful. That's what my sister-in-law
The
did.
state is horrible.
My sister-in-law grew up in Modesto, and then she's full Iowan now. Yeah. There's only 3 million of us, so we know everybody.
I was looking around for homes. I just I bought this home like 17 years ago. It's a small house, and everything is just so expensive.
Oh yeah.
But the main thing is just because of acting and comedy. I have to stay close to especially the acting. They'll call you at 9:00 at night and say, "Hey, you're on set tomorrow." So.
Yeah, for sure. And are you doing stuff? Like, are you getting?
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
It's it's so much different from. I was acting when I was 18,
mm-hmm.
and I would get like I got a PBS special. I didn't even show up for it, or the way that I view it is completely different. And then you had to physically drive there, and then do an audition, and now you get everything on Casting Network, Actors Access. You can pick and choose. So it's just a numbers game. If you continue to apply for the jobs, you'll get them. I just see so many people that just don't do it, and then complain about it and say that it doesn't work for them.
Wow. Yeah,
but I have a lot of fun, and that was the main thing that I learned with law enforcement is I had no emotions, and that's what I love about acting is you can use your emotions, which I hadn't been using for 25 years.
When I went to basic training for the Army a long time, so 1995, I just was like, well, the first week they break you down, and I had been a theater major in college, and the last show that I'd done was Macbeth, so I could still like recite the lines, and they would so I get the nickname Shakespeare in basic training, which didn't stick, thankfully.
That's good. Yes.
Yeah, right. So, but what I found out was that acting experience was actually very useful for me because you get broke down, and then you have to decide at that moment that you're going to fake it till you make it, and faking it till you make it is just what acting is. And so, becoming the biggest, baddest soldier that you could think of, based on primarily Arnold Schwarzenegger movies and things that I'd watched in the 80s, to be honest with you, got me through basic training and then advanced training and then my first duty assignment, 10th Mountain, and on and on and on. And it was just like, I retired and I gave my little retirement speech, and I just like, I picked up a role in 1995 and I've been playing it for the last 26 years because I'm not that necessarily that guy either, it's just a role. So it's good.
No, that's very true. That's exactly what it is. And I would, just like you said, I would use that also. But more and more as I've been doing this the last year, I realized that is what you're doing. Everything is a character. And if you can play that character, everything. I was so afraid of improv before, and improv and clowning. So I'm also going to clown school. It's about being silent, being present, and listening to that other person. And you're improvising. And it's just, if you can improv and throw that away, which is a lot you do in the military, you're going to, get through it because it's battling your ego.
Right. Yeah. And we had a saying, I'm sure you've heard it because it's in the movies now, so it must be true, but we did say it, and it was embrace the suck. And, that's really what you did so many times, just innately, we're working through these problems with everything else. So
you should start, how's the comedy in Iowa?
Okay. Well, I mean, I did see Jim Gaffigan in Cedar Rapids one time. So they do come here. I know that comedians come here. Des Moines has a comedy scene. I don't know how lively it is, to be honest with you, but
you start up your own open mic.
Here at Sunnyside Studios, you bet. Up here on the farm.
Yeah.
They'll come out. They'll see it. They'll travel here to
I'm telling you, they'll come out. You got comedians everywhere. You got people just want a place to go.
Well, I will say this: we're 2 hours away from Des Moines, so that's a bit. And 2 hours away from Minneapolis, so we're right between those two cities. And if you don't mind a 2 hour drive, but that is beneficial. So we do have the ability, I suppose, to have people come down. I'll think about that. It's not a bad idea. Maybe we'll do that.
Well, that's the best way, like, because you can kind of get trapped in going to open mics, but if you start your own and then you start to MC it, that, because you're going to get other people that want to do, because just, between 3 and 5 minutes.
Yeah, make it sound so easy.
I mean, that part is, you got to embrace the suck. That part sucks, but you're always gonna find people that want to do comedy, though. That's the interesting part to me. It's horrible and depressing, but at the same time, it is an art, and there's so many people that they're basically just up there, talking about their problems. It's great therapy.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. I just really appreciate what you do. I appreciate the writing, the work that goes into it, just the formation of the sentences to get to the joke in the right way. So it is an art, and I'm not part of that art form, but I appreciate it.
You are a part of that art form. You're doing it right now. I went to America's Got Talent. They paid me to be. I never knew this either, but they have actual paid actors in the crowd that are talking, and the mics are in the seats. So you're supposed to be causing like some division between but there were people that showed up just to get pictures with like Simon and Howie Mandel, and then they left. And so you had kind of have these like different divisions of people, of reasons why they show up to this stuff. As did I. I was paid to go there. But you had people that just wanted to see the show or the act. And then you had other people that just wanted to see the celebrities. Like they're obsessed with the celebrities, and they were screaming the whole time at them. And it's kind of interesting sociological.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. Your job was to what then? To just instill discontent?
Yeah, I'm an actor that's supposed to, they give you lines, and you're supposed to, like, when the act comes up, that's a horrible act. I would never see that. That sucked. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love Simon's hair. That's another thing. It's like Simon's, he's sitting in a high chair. He's like a really short guy. And so in person, they look completely different than they on TV, which is another factor. Like a lot of people look very different when they're on TV.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I know that.
But yeah, everything's fake. I did like court TV. It's all 10 of those court TV shows are scripted. Everybody in the audience are actors. And like the more and more I get into it, the more I think everything's fake.
Wow. I guess I did not know that. Well, so there's all kinds of jobs out there for the working actor that apparently does the work. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the part, and that's how I'm different than 30 years ago, where I had this idea I'm going to become famous, and now I just want to get paid and be a working actor. I don't want to. I don't want to. I just want lines. I don't want a leading role or anything like that. But I did a film. I did like Mad Men on Saturday, which is another great thing. You can work Saturdays and Sundays. Mm-hmm. But it was 1962. The script was great. It was about the takeover of Jamaica from the UK. So you're on a set, dressed like you're Don Draper from the 1960s, and a lot of it is improv. They're feeding you lines and telling you what to say, and to me, it's just so much fun. Yeah, that would be cool. Last question for you, Mike. I've really appreciated the time that you've spent with me and our listeners. It's it's just a wonderful conversation. You're a wonderful guy, even if you don't always see yourself that way. I'm just so impressed with your patience and your empathy and just the love that you have for your daughter. I'm enthusiastic about your family and all of the great things and that I believe are coming your way. And so, thank you so much for being a part of the sunny side of life and being the sunny side of someone else's life, and particularly that of your daughter, Vivien. And with that, I just want to give you the last word, but I'm going to preface it by asking you a question. What does a cow use for math? A calculator. Well, there it is. Was that your joke? Did you come up with that? That's Vivien's favorite joke, and that was that's in my book, and I talk about that because as a comedian, it was very hard for me, and as a father, where I couldn't joke around with my daughter, and now I can joke around with her because of her VNS, where she gets sarcasm and humor. That was kind of one of the crushing things for me, is going through all of that was not being able to communicate with my daughter. And just being able to watch her, light up and smile and laugh. And that's where she is now. She's such a happy kid. And she's, I dropped her off at school this morning. We were joking around, and that fills my heart, that I have that relationship with my daughter.
Wonderful. Anything else you'd like to say?
I would like to say thank you very much for having me. This was a great talk. You got a great radio voice. I see great things for you in the future.
Next week on the Sunny Side of Life, Joel McNulty.
What's going to happen is if we have a baseball field downtown, the Crossroads is done. Done. No matter what they tell you, it's done. And all of these local mom and pop shops that are doing very well and promoting people like me.
Yeah.
Done. No. Do you want a half bear hug or do you want a full bear hug?
I mean, I'm all in for the full, but I don't know how the bear feels about it.
I mean, I got to a point where I didn't think I could write a song anymore.
You also got yourself into a program too, didn't you?
I absolutely did. Alcohol has been kind of a constant in my life. And I got to the point that I did not want that anymore. I knew that I was committing to something. And it was so unbelievably consuming that I almost couldn't take it. And then I got in and I saw about 25 mirrors is what I saw. And I thought, you know what? I'm home. Her husband's in the nursing home. She's got terminal colon cancer. The woman was a trooper. And I couldn't write that song for a few years after she died. I couldn't do it. I'm not wanting to go back to the way things were. I'm wanting to go back there and we're all well. And it's a metaphor to me for meeting in heaven. It really is. So, man, I hope people like it. Don't give up. I could have given up and I've wanted to many times. I am not in that frame of mind now. I want to keep making music.
I want to thank all our friends and guests for stopping by for this episode of the Sunny Side of Life. All the Sunny Side of Life players who stopped by, creative support provided every day by my incredible wife Heidi and our fantastic 4 boys. Thanks to every one of our listeners. That means you. A big shout out to my brothers and sisters in uniform holding the line around the world. Share the word, folks. Let the people know what we're up to. Subscribe so you never miss an episode and follow us on social media. All skits are written or adapted and directed by me, Troy Thompson, and are produced here at Sunnyside Farm Studios and delivered to all platforms by Buzzsprout. Music and sound effects are provided by Soundstripe. The Sunny Side of Life is a weekly production about our life on the family farmstead here in Iowa, the liberties we prize, and the pursuits which make us happy. Now, none of this is possible without Christ in our lives. For the Lord God is our sun and our shield. He gives us grace and glory. So may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the sunny side of your life, liberty and pursuits, be in Christ, and made evident unto you each and every day, and give you peace.